call it to order, or call it to order again, whatever.
All right, and looks like we are live.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. So we are having our Finance and Personnel meeting directly after the Committee of the Whole and the Transit Commission meetings, which went a little longer than anticipated by some. And so we will, I will call this meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee to order at this time. And so we're going to start with I believe a roll call, right? It's not on the agenda, but we usually do a roll call, correct?
Yes.
All right, please take it away. Roll call.
Okay. Alder Taft.
Here.
Alder West.
Here.
Alder Pete.
Here.
Alder Tate II.
Present.
That completes roll call.
Okay, and Alder Meekman has asked to be excused. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes for the November 29th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Dueling motions. All right, I'm going to say that Alder West made the motion. Do I have a second?
No, second.
All right, seconded by Alder Tate II. Do I have any discussion on this item? Let me check my hands. Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So that brings us to the first item, which is item 22-22, subject communication sponsored by our Mayor Mason, proposing that the management of Ride Racine operations be transitioned from a private transit management contractor to the City of Racine administration and staff effective February 1st, 2022. Recommendation to the Transit Commission Finance and Personnel Committee is to authorize the management of Ride Racine operations be transitioned from a private transit management contractor to the City of Racine administration and staff effective February 1st, 2022. Fiscal note, funding for transit operations was authorized in the City of Racine 2022 annual budget. Do I have a motion? Or I guess that's the first. No, I'm sorry. Okay, let's do this. I think I believe we have Manager Young to speak on to this motion. I'm gonna kick it off with you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Fortunately, we were able to have a concurrent meeting between the Transit Commission and Committee of the Whole, where a presentation was given based on context and steps forward for bringing transit in-house. Fortunately, we have somebody here representing the workers who is interested in speaking on the item to provide more insight. So I will leave it there.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that the workers is it's more for item 2, but if the person wants to speak shortly, first I want to offer the committee to ask any additional questions before we do the public comment. So are there any questions by commissioners first, or committee members, I'm sorry, first? President Tate, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we asked a bunch of good questions already in the previous committee meeting. My particular question, as the fiscal note notes that transit operations were authorized already in the budget, are there any costs associated with actually facilitating this particular transition? I know the actual staffing and operation of the transit system is covered in the budget, so we assume those particular costs, but are there any costs associated either with having to contract for outside legal counsel in this transition or anything like that we should be aware of?
Excellent question. Mr. Bornhold, it looks like you may have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say there are costs internally to our own internal costs. Yes, we have used, particularly on the pension issue, we have used some outside counsel, but nothing outside of the realm of this transfer. We've used outside counsel to ask questions about central states and liability. And so we did those questions when we were preparing the RFP, and also to answer our questions of how we're going to proceed going forward on the pension issue. But everything's been budgeted, and outside counsel is budgeted in the city attorney's office. So no, there are no additional budget items that we have incurred at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm checking. I don't see any additional questions from committee members at this time. So at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Bennett to speak to the item.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a privilege to address the body tonight. Teamsters Local 200's got a very historic relationship with the city of Racine. Prior to Local 200 taking over the contract for the bus workers, when there was a merger between Local 43 out of Racine and Teamsters Local 200, this relationship has been formed. I know mass transit is important to Racine. It's important to our organization also. Looks like Mr. Young has done a phenomenal job getting out in front of this transition, and I applaud him for doing that. Our workers applaud him for doing that. You've got a very diverse work group down there, and they're from your location. They're from your community, and they know your constituents. They know what Racine's about, and they work hard for the city of Racine. Those transit workers, good people, hardworking people. Willie McDonald, who runs it, he's not part of the bargaining unit, but there is no better man to operate that system with the vision that he has. He's going to get an opportunity, if this passes, to grow that organization, grow that transit system under your guys' leadership. So we look forward to this relationship moving forward. There seems to be some discussions about contracts. This contract, that contract was a little confusing, but I think Mayor Mason cleared everything up. I look forward to working with this commission. I look forward to building our relationship. I look forward to that diverse work group getting larger and providing more services for the city of Racine. So I applaud what you're doing, getting out front, and I look forward to working together with the city of Racine on this transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Much appreciated. Okay, so do we have any other comments or questions at this time? Mayor Mason, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair Taft, for that opportunity. I just wanted to lend my voice in support. Obviously, I'm sponsoring the motion, so clearly I'm supportive of us taking on these employees as new employees of the city, and of course, recognizing the employees and their right to be collectively represented by Local 200. I think both of these things are equally important. I think we want to maintain the continuity of service and make sure that mass transit continues February 1st, 2022. But as important, and somebody who spent a lot of time as a legislator and now as a mayor, caring deeply about workplace democracy and giving workers a voice where they are, it's really, I think, important and a rare opportunity in a post-Act 10 world that we're able to recognize the bargaining unit that's able to represent these employees who've done so well. The other person I just want to mention tonight, because I've been thinking about him and I hope he's looking down, smiling at us, is Ray DeHaan, a former alder and a longtime member of Local 43. And I just have to believe that if he saw us doing this here today, he'd be really proud of us. You couldn't have asked for a bigger champion of workers' rights on the council when he was around than Ray DeHaan. And I just feel really positive and would like to have us think about doing this almost in his memory, that we would bring these workers on board and recognize their right to have a union and their right to have a voice in their workplace. And as Mr. Bennett pointed out, and as President Tate pointed out previously, this is a great, diverse and local part of our workforce if we make them our employees. And I'm very excited to have them on board and really thrilled, again, in a post-Act 10 world, that we're able to do something to give workers a voice where they work here for us. So I would strongly encourage support of both the motions before us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If we don't have any other comments or at this time, a motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Moved by President Tate, seconded by, I think it was Alder West. No.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Doing a quick check on my, okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right. So the next item then, that brings us to the next item, which is related but not identical, of course. Item 21-22, communication from Mayor Mason proposing that the selection of representatives and determination of appropriate unions for collective bargaining for City of Racine Transit employees be authorized. Recommendation to the Transit Commission and Finance and Personnel Committee on this date is to authorize the selection of representatives and determination of appropriate units for collective bargaining for City of Racine Transit employees. The fiscal note is non-applicable at this time. Do we have any, are there any questions from committee members or items for discussion?
Is there a presentation to define what that means to select representatives and determination for collective bargaining unit?
I'm not sure. Attorney Letney or Alder Young or Administrator Bornholt, what do you want to take a crack at that?
I can give it a shot. So without trying to go into too much depth, there is a state law that that called the Municipal Employees Relations Act that relates to collective bargaining for the employees that are permitted to collectively bargain. And there's a requirement that the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission actually certify a collective bargaining unit of a municipal employer. It's not a tough process under these circumstances. It's something that can be done. Officially, there's an election, but we're just going to end up agreeing with Local 200 and the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission, and we're just going to get it done. This action of the Common Council essentially authorizes the administrative action on the part of administration and staff to work with WERC and take care of it. It's going to be a pretty smooth and easy process under these circumstances. Normally, if a collective bargaining unit starts up from scratch, it's a lot more involved, not so much here.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer the question? Or, hopefully that's a good enough background context. Any other questions, comments from committee members? Any comments from the public or other alders? Alder Tate II.
I just wanted to comment for those that don't perhaps fully recognize what this is, but as Attorney Letney said, there could be a number of steps for a brand new collective bargaining unit to be established with an employer. And in many circumstances and news stories you see across the country is that there's significant resistance to that happening from employers. What we have before us is the opportunity to say that there's a unit that wants to collectively bargain. And as an employer, we are not going to stand in the way of that process, but instead we are going to invite and embrace that process and say, yes, if that's what you want to do, we're not going to stand in your way to do so. And I think it's important that we really clarify that that's what the city is doing. There's a new set of employees coming in that have an existing collective bargaining unit, but even if they didn't, and if they wanted to, it would be the city's position to say, like, by all means, because we support your ability to exercise democracy in the workplace, and we're not going to get in the way of that, like some employers may do, that we hear in the news very often. So I just want to make it clear. That's why I asked somebody going to present on what this means and kind of put it plainly, to say that people can unionize, people can, collectively bargain, and sometimes it's not, it's not as agreeable as we'd like to see it be. In this scenario, we want to be agreeable because we want to support the worker ability to bargain with their employer. So this is what we're doing. So that's just what I wanted to comment, kind of put it in more plain terms for those who may be watching at home and trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's an important clarification. We're all working, pretty hard for this. So thank you everyone to contribute. So we have, I don't see any other comments or questions at this, so a motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, moved by Alder West, seconded by Alder Tate II. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I know this is only a step, and this has been a lot of hard work on a lot of folks, and I appreciate everyone's hard work and patience and transparency and all of that. All right, that brings us to our next item then. And that would be item 983-21, a communication sponsored by Alder West on behalf of the Chief of Police requesting to accept for the 2021 Walmart Community Grant sponsored. Staff recommendation is to approve. Fiscal note, the grant amount received is $3,500, no city match required. And I do believe we may have someone here to speak to this item. Is that accurate?
Yes, Chief Robinson, I'm here.
Okay, they take it away.
All right, what this was, and actually I got to apologize, in the previous meeting, we had a snafu. We had too many people on another meeting rather than that one, so we missed it. But this was funding for Shop with the Cop, which we did do. And out of their generosity, we had requested $2,500 and Walmart granted us $3,500. So we were successful in that endeavor, and we were able to make a number of kids happy for the holiday season. So we're thankful for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Alder Tate, did you have a question or comment?
So this is like a retroactive confirmation of funds that had already been received?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, just want to, all right.
We did discuss it in committee before. I mean, it
Right.
has come up before, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say Shop with the Cop. I'm like, so that's happened, right? Because I want to make sure it's like make some kids wait until like weeks after Christmas. Like, all right, we finally got approved from the council. Let's go shop. It's like, man, it's not the same. So just want to make sure it already occurred. All right, thank you.
All right. So if there are no other
No,
comments,
we didn't scrooge it up.
Excellent. So if there are no other comments or discussion, motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Moved by Alder West,
Second.
seconded by Alder Pete. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is item 9-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Chief Information Officer, requesting permission to enter into a sole source of professional services agreement, as noted on the agenda, with Pictometry International Corporation to complete an aerial flyover. Staff recommendation, the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute and sign the professional services agreement with Pictometry International Corporation. As discussed, fiscal note, total cost of $82,000 is budgeted in the 2022 operating budget under the account as listed. And I believe we have Ms. Edwards here to discuss this item. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know how much discussion is needed. I will answer any questions from the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Yeah, could you guys give us a brief, just a brief overview, like aerial flyover? What's that about? Like, could you just give us a little bit of context?
Okay, so the context is that the city uses a GIS layer to show literally the entire city area, where all the streets are, where all the houses are, where all the buildings are, et cetera. And about every 3 years, this aerial picture of the city should be redone as things change. And so that's what this is about. We've used this company for quite a while. They provide excellent service. They have information about how we want the data. And so I'm requesting that the committee approve so we can continue to update our GIS layers about the city.
Okay, great. Are there any questions about this? Alder, take the second, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So typically, we obviously have the agenda briefing memorandum, so we have the explanation. But typically when something comes before the council or this committee in particular that is sole sourced or not bidded out, it can draw additional attention. So if you would just in your own words kind of explain why why we're proceeding with the sole source. Obviously, it's in the agenda briefing memorandum, but just for the record, why this isn't being competitively bid. I believe that was the initial part of the process, but we got this stage because of the steps you went through. So you just explain what those were.
Yes. The reason we're doing it sole source is we've used this company before. There are very few companies in the United States that actually do this work. And given the fact that we require a variety of different aspects of this work to be done, this is one of the only companies in the US that actually does everything that we need for the city. Additionally, they have worked with us before, and so they have historical records of exactly what we want. And so it made much more sense to work with them than to try to start an entirely new company and refer to them. This work is very important. It's very detailed oriented. It takes an enormous amount of effort to literally fly over the entire city and then take the data that it has and put it into a format that the city can consume. And so working with the director of purchasing, this was a decision to go forth. We drafted a contract with them, and the details of the contract are in the attachments. If you have more questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. I don't see any other questions. So at this time, a motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Okay. Moved by Alder Tate II.
Second.
Seconded by Alder West. Any further discussion on this item?
I did have a follow-up.
Okay.
So I think I guess for a lot of folks, this might be surprising that we just don't use like Google Maps for our GIS stuff. So can you kind of explain, and perhaps, as lay in lay terms as possible, because people might be like, well, why don't you just use Google Maps? Why wouldn't we just use Google Maps, and why would we contract out for this very intensive and specific work with using flyovers? Why is that significant for the systems that we use?
So what the company is able to do is actually take the pictures and remap the roads and a variety of other data. Google Maps just gives you kind of an overview of what the data is, but it doesn't actually identify different individual aspects. And that's what this company does. That's what these types of companies do, to give you the exact data that you need, as opposed to Google Maps, which is just, here's kind of what it is. And they don't fly over every so many years. It depends on what location you are, et cetera. So this really gives the city the capability to have what it needs. So for public works, when they need to make a change to a road, can see exactly what the detailed data is, as opposed to what Google Maps. Google Maps is more created for the public use, not necessarily for organizations and cities and municipalities to use for their GIS needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Because I had to ask simply because, like, from a outside perspective, like, well, if it's the same map, why would you pay $82,000 for this particular thing? And I think it's important that folks understand that, or anybody who might have that particular thought, that there's more to it than simply having that map. I think and I imagine that part of the work that they would do was actually map out the particular structures that are on lot lines so that we can identify the actual shape of the building there, as well as the shape of the lot, as well as, those particular things that wouldn't occur necessarily with Google Maps. So that's kind of some of the work, in addition to obviously the photography they'll take from aerial, but then the layers that you mentioned. And I think just kind of explaining that little bit of detail for folks will make sense as to why we're doing this, as opposed to like something that might be a simple solution that folks come up with, but not necessarily the actual solution that we need to provide the services that we do. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we had a motion and a second and discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item then is item 10-22, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Chief Information Officer requesting permission to award the contract for surveillance, camera, and access point installation and maintenance to ClearComm, Code Red Security, and Complex Security Solutions. The staff recommendation is to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute and sign contracts with those companies to provide surveillance camera and access point installation and maintenance. Fiscal note, funding for this work is budgeted in 2022 as noted. So would you like to please speak to this item a little bit, what these security cameras are doing and why there are multiple companies attached to this item?
Yes, thank you very much for the Finance and Personnel Committee, as well as the residents of Racine. The reason we need to do this is because the city has an enormous amount of surveillance cameras, both in public areas to help provide the police department with capabilities to see into certain areas that tend to be problematic, as well as internal cameras that we have in city buildings. And we need a company to manage those, to maintain them, to replace them when they break, to add new ones. And historically, we've had one company doing this work. And the reason we're wanting to bid to 3 is so that a variety of things can occur without causing a delay. So if we ask company A to do the work and they're busy and can't do the work in a timely manner, then we have 2 other companies that are already on contract. We don't have to go to bid. We don't have to wait, that we can ask them to do the work. Additionally, it gives the city the ability to see the work being done by these different companies and be able to decide which company provides the best work. And this will enable the city next year, this is only a 1-year contract, to possibly be able to minimize the number. But we want to start at least with 3. These were the best companies based on the bids that we received and reviewed. And so that's what we want to do going forward if approved by Finance Personnel and later by Common Council. This is similar to a couple of other things that I've got, which I will repeat if you want, but the other 3 contracts coming up are very similar. Some are only for one company, others are for multiple companies, but that's the reasoning behind it, is so that we can quickly move if a company can't meet our timeframes. And often, if there's a problem, if a piece of equipment goes down, we need to put it back up quickly. And so speed is of the essence. Any other questions?
Okay, I see a question from Alder Tate II. Please proceed, sir.
I just had a comment. I just want to say I appreciate this particular approach actually to contracting and requesting for proposals and proceeding forward, particularly for a newer service, or at least newer service providers, and having multiple available to us, and then also using that data for eventually making a determination if we're going to go with fewer ones for a longer period of time, to evaluate them in real time with actual work products as opposed to proposals. So I do appreciate just that particular approach to the bidding process. I know a lot of times with the city, we maintain certain contracts because the thing that we hate hearing heard said the most is because that's the way we've always done it. And seeing this particular approach of like, well, we're going to explore this way and then proceed, if they set themselves apart to a certain extent as a provider. So I just appreciate this particular approach to bidding and service acquisition. So thank you.
I was going to ask a question as well. I mean, I think it is an interesting approach. I guess I'm trying to think about it too from the perspective of the company. So basically all 3 of them are kind of on call. And so do you have them on call for different things, or how do you select sort of which company gets called in for which thing? Because it seems like it would be awkward if you call in all 3 companies to do the same thing, right? So how could you just explain a little bit how that would, sort of functionally work?
So we use the usual city of Racine bidding process where we discussed exactly what capabilities the companies would need to have. And in some cases, with this one, they had to have certain capabilities. And so they needed to show us that they either had certifications or other capabilities. And so we reviewed all of that. And then the idea is that, and this is just for surveillance camera and access point installations and maintenance of such. So it's kind of a narrow approach. Some companies have the ability to do a variety of the things we're asking, but this is just for the surveillance cameras. We wanted to make sure that we had enough companies. So the idea is when we have a need, we would start out with the first company and ask them if they could do it. We already know what capabilities they have based on what they provided us in their bid documents. And my personal idea would be that, start with company A, next job, try company B, third job, try company C. And then depending on the capabilities of the companies and what we see with them, then perhaps give more. All companies realize that they will not necessarily get any funding from this bid contract because it depends on what the work is coming up. This isn't a bid to do X. This is a bid to be on call to provide service to the city. And so they were willing to be on call to do this, but no company has an understanding of any amount to be awarded through this contract, if that makes sense.
It does. And so the other companies are aware of the fact that there are multiple companies. Okay. Alder Pete, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sounds like a good idea to do it this way because it gives you some control and flexibility. But is the pricing the same with all three companies? Do they bid there? How does that part work?
Yes, the pricing is the same for all three. And in the attachment, which I'm bringing up now just to give you the exact amount, we have decided on a pricing for this work of a normal hourly business rate of $72 and an hourly non-business rate of $95. And so they all would have to meet that qualification.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Good questions. I don't see any additional questions at this time, so a motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Alder Tate II, seconded by Alder Pete. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is item 11-22, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Chief Information Officer, requesting permission to award contract for fiber cabling installation and maintenance to Clearcom. Staff recommendation is to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute and sign the contract with Clearcom to provide fiber cabling installation and maintenance. Fiscal note, funding for this work is budgeted in 2022 under the account as denoted. Ms. Edwards, would you like to speak to this item?
Yeah, so similar to the one before, we have a variety of cable needs within the city, especially if, for example, we want to add a new camera to a new location. We actually have to get fiber to the pole and then put the camera up. And so this is to take care of doing the fiber work of that, as well as any other fiber work that we might need where we need internet to a separate building. And so one of the things I didn't mention previously is that these contracts do allow the city for specific projects to go out and bid separately. So if there's a nice big project that we want to make sure that we had the details of and different pricing or whatever, we have the option to do that. But again, this idea was to select one or more companies. Only one company actually met the qualifications of what the bid was, and that was Clearcom. And so we would like to go forward with them for a 1-year contract to do our fiber installations for the city, if approved by the various committees.
Thank you. Does anybody have any additional questions or comments regarding this item? Okay, it's a motion would be in order at this time then.
Move to approve. Sorry.
Moved
Second.
by Alder West, seconded by Alder Tate II. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 12-22, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Chief Information Officer, requesting permission to award the contract for structured low voltage cabling installation and maintenance to Allcon LLC, Clearcom, and CC&N. Staff recommendation is to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute and sign the contract with these companies to provide structured low voltage cabling installation and maintenance. Fiscal note, funding for this work is budgeted in 2022 in the account as listed. So, so this is another one of those multiple company bids. So if you could just, I know you already explained the structure originally, so if you have anything to add with this bid, please take it away.
Yeah, so just to explain what I mean by structured or low voltage. So the fiber is the fiber that goes usually from building to building, though fiber can go into within a building. This is for the basic capabilities of if the city decides to add a new office or move an office or add new capabilities in a room, then this is to provide the network movement of cabling to the locations. So for example, one of the cop houses had a fire a year or two ago and needs to have new capabilities which require network. And so these companies would be one of the group that would provide that capability for the city. Again, 3 companies selected. We do the same thing that we did before, and all of them met our bid specifications. Any other questions?
All right, seeing none, a motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Moved by Alder West,
Second.
seconded by Alder Tate II. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. I haven't kept track, I haven't been counting. I think this may be the final one, but I'm not sure for for your office. Item 13-22, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Chief Information Officer, requesting permission to award a contract for conference room and miscellaneous office equipment installation and maintenance to Clearcom. Staff recommendation is to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute and sign the contract with Clearcom to provide these services. Fiscal note, funding for this work is budgeted in 2022 as noted. Could you just give us a brief background on this item, please?
So the city has a variety of equipment. So for example, very large screens or conference room equipment, including, for example, microphones that might be installed in the ceiling and things like that, it makes more sense to have a company come in and complete that work than have city staff take an enormous amount of time to do this work. And so I'm requesting to have Clearcom be the company that comes in and takes care of that. Again, a good example is the cop houses. A variety of them want different equipment updated. And so this company could come in and attend to putting that equipment up for the city. Any other
Okay.
questions?
That makes sense. I don't see any other questions or comments at this time, which means a motion is in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Alder Tate II, seconded by Alder West. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Edwards, for your explaining what was going on. We appreciate it.
Alder Taft. Your video's off and you're muted.
Okay, sometimes that happens when it doesn't always happen, but I have to like toggle out of this, out of Zoom to get to the item. So I'm gonna try it again because I didn't mute myself or turn my video off, but I have to go over to the agenda to do that. So Alder Tate II, please tell me if I disappear again because it's not intentional.
Zoom.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Can't see
okay.
you.
Okay, well, I'm just going to read it quick and then I'll pop back in. So if you can hear me. Communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the fire department requesting, this is item 25-22, requesting permission to apply for the 2021 FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Safer Grant. Staff recommendation is to approve. Fiscal note, the grant is for $3.2 million and will restore the 9 firefighter paramedic positions lost in the 2021 fire department budget. Per the 2021 AFG Safer Grant guidance document, there is no maintenance of effort and no cost share or match. So hopefully I'm back now. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know why it does that sometimes. And so I believe with us, we have Chief Hansen to give us sort of the background on this. So please, sir, take it away.
Good evening, Chairperson Taft and members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the SAFER grant this evening. As you all recall, with the financial condition of the city, we had to reduce our staffing by 9 paramedic positions in 2021. Challenges that we're facing right now is increased call volume and increased demand for fire department services. Right now, as of this evening, we've had 375 calls since the beginning of the year, and that averages out to about 13,600 calls, give or take a few, going into the end of the year versus the 12,348 calls we had for 2021. So the challenge for the fire department is to maintain emergency services for the patients in Racine, in particular our EMS calls. As you are all keenly aware, we're running into more and more issues with COVID. On a daily basis, we're transporting a number of COVID positive patients out to Ascension. And we see that continuing to rise due to our low vaccination rate in the city. So we got to be prepared for that. Another challenge that the fire department is facing is in recruiting. And this is something that all fire departments are facing right now. We think it's going to be a bit of a challenge to recruit these 9 paramedics. Once we get them recruited, we get them on board and we'll get them deployed out to our paramedic rescue squads. Something else that we're looking at that occurred in 2021 is our emergency response times. Our first on-scene unit to an emergency medical call has gone up by almost 1.5 minutes, almost 2 minutes over 2020. And over time, and as our call volume continues to increase, we're looking at greater delays. So we're looking at staffing up to respond to that. One of the other challenges that we're going to face as a fire department is our citizens requesting to go to the new Aurora Mount Pleasant hospital that will be opening up in a month or two here. Currently, we transport to Ascension All Saints and Racine. We've been doing that for a number of years. But with the Aurora facility so close to the city, while we would not actively promote that, we will have citizens of Racine that may want to go to that facility, which is going to add 30 to 35 minutes to our transport time. 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back. So how does this play into the 9 positions that we're requesting here in this AFG grant? Previous to 2021, our rescue squads were staffed with 3. Now they are staffed with 2. And what we found this year is that a majority of the calls that those 2-person ambulances rolled on actually needed more than 2 people to deal with the call. So we had to send a first responder engine company or a second ambulance to help them. Imagine yourself in a situation, a medical emergency where you have to deal with a heart attack where you're running a defib, starting an IV and things like that. So in conclusion, the staffing, these 9 positions would be for 3 years. We're looking at $3.2 million or $1.066 million a year. This includes all wages, benefits in that number. So we're covered there. There is no match on the part of the city. There is no match, no maintenance of effort at the end of the grant. The key question I think a lot of alders are thinking is what happens when we get to the end of the grant period and we have these 9 positions. As of today, as of 2025, when the grant would end, we have 28 positions on the fire department that are eligible for retirement. So we can more than cover if we have to downsize, we can cover at that time. Of course, we would apply for another AFG grant if that was appropriate. So at this time, does anybody have any questions for me? Be happy to answer anything that you have.
Alder, take the second, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, you answered the first question, which was, probably the most obvious one, what happens when the funds expire? So the second question then is, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think we failed to touch on it during the budget discussions of what the particular outcome was of that reduction of staffing on the ambulances. Is the intention then to return to a 3-person ambulance crews with the addition of these 9 new paramedics or not?
Alder Tate, thank you for the question. The intention is to, whenever possible, to staff up the ambulances with 3 persons. If we don't need them on the ambulances, they will be assigned to the fire engines and the ladder trucks that we have in the city. So it'll be dependent on the day and the staffing levels as to where they'll wind up going. Does that help?
A little bit. I guess I'm curious how that will be determined. Is it the kind of the dispatch call that you get additional details to know whether it's going to call for 3 versus 2? And I guess just to kind of give us a day in the life, how does that interaction kind of occur? Or what are some of the check boxes that you all go through in making that assessment of a 2 versus 3?
Absolutely, Alder Tate. So there are 3 types of 3 calls for services for emergency medical services: basic life support, advanced life support, and critical care advanced life support, which is for folks that are experiencing an end-of-life issue. Basic life support generally only requires 2 people for the transport, but when you start getting into ALS and ALS-1 transports, that's where we need the extra help, and that's when we'll be sending these extra folks on that. The other thing that I should point out too is there's another call for service. It's called P&B, pulseless non-breathers. And unfortunately, those are going up over time. I mean, I think we had 160 of them last year. And these are calls that come into the dispatch center, as a pulseless non-breather, and we need all hands on deck. There's a lot going on there to work on patients that are suffering from a cardiac or other medical emergency that's potentially end of life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I guess a little follow-up, and this is a little tertiary to the issue, but I'm curious as to if you've been able to, or if you would be able to kind of parse out for us what the cost differentials were for having to dispatch an entire ladder truck as support, as opposed to having an additional paramedic in that vehicle. And I think having some of that information is like, because this is what we had to do instead, this is what it costs versus what it would have cost if we had 3 persons on there, and how those balance out, because that may also be a value when this particular grant may expire, to kind of give some context as to, what's the balance here? Do we actually want to fill retired positions, maintain retired positions, lose those positions by attrition or something else? I think that'll be valuable data for the council to consider at that time.
Alder Tate, thank you. As a matter of fact, Alder Taft and I had that conversation on Friday, and I'm in the process of gathering 5 years worth of data, which will paint a pretty good picture of what's going on here. So I anticipate having that done in the next week or two. As soon as that's done, I'll push it out to everybody.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, we did talk about that. And I guess my question has to do with, I guess it's sort of COVID related in terms of, is the pandemic, is that you mentioned some increase in cases, like what sorts of conditions are a lot of the folks that you're transporting for COVID reasons? Like, what classification would they fall under? And do you think that contributed to a rise in those cases? Those kinds of cases.
So Alder Taft, for COVID patients, typically they're experiencing difficulty breathing, typical signs and symptoms of, flu-like symptoms. They're running a fever, have been running a fever for several days. Some of them have coughs that are associated with that, but the most predominant symptom with our COVID is difficulty breathing. And unfortunately, it's not just our senior citizens that are experiencing this. We're transporting people as young as 15 and 16 for COVID symptoms right now. And that's going to go on for a while until we get the Omicron variant under control, actually the Delta too. The big thing is just folks need to get vaccinated. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's what's going to slow this down.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were speaking about the increase in cases, and I think we all understand that the rise in cases is going to continue regardless of when we get the pandemic becomes endemic. But it's good to have sort of a little bit of context into how that is contributing a little bit to the cases that we're seeing. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Are there any additional questions for the chief?
I guess I did have a follow-up just as it relates to the grant. So I know we're requesting 3.2 million. What are the odds that we'll actually receive that particular number, if not more, and if not, then kind of what might we anticipate would be the floor of what we might receive from this particular grant, or is it pretty common that you get what you request?
Thank you, Alder Tate, for the question. In all the AFG grants that I've seen, the departments have gotten what they requested.
Okay.
That's very common. It's rare that they give less. And if they're going to downsize the grant, they usually get a hold of us ahead of time and say, hey, would you accept a lesser amount? But in the AFG SAFER grants, I have not seen or heard from anybody that said they've been reduced. And as a point of interest, Caledonia Fire and Rescue, just to our north, has a SAFER grant right now for positions on their department.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is these are pretty competitive grants, so fingers crossed. All right. Seeing no additional questions or comments, I am going to open it up for a motion at this time.
Move to approve.
All right, moved by Alder Tate II, seconded by Alder West. And is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. And Chief Hansen, when you have that information, we all look forward to seeing it. And thank you for coming to talk to us about this today.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, so I may disappear again, but I'm going to pop over to the agenda. So my apologies. It's not intentional if my video goes down. The next item is item 988-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city attorney's office, submitting the claim of Stephanie Munoz for consideration for disallowance. Recommendation by staff is that the claim be disallowed, which would lead to no fiscal note. Attorney Rubix, would you like to speak to this item?
I would. Thank you, Chair Taft. So Stephanie Munoz filed a claim with the city requesting $221.35 in damages to her vehicle, which she damaged when she hit a pothole in a privately owned parking lot of the Burlington store over on Green Bay Road. I think it used to be called Burlington Coat Factory. It was Burlington's lot, not the city's. So because this incident occurred on private property, the city is not liable for these damages. So my office recommends that this claim be disallowed.
Move to disallow.
Second.
Move to disallow by Alder Tate II, seconded by Alder Pete. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Bringing us to our next motion. Item 989-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city attorney's office, submitting the claim of Tina Anderson for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation is the claim be disallowed. Take it away, Attorney Rubix.
Thank you very much. Claimant Tina Anderson is requesting $50,000 in damages for an injury she sustained after she allegedly stepped into a pothole in the parking lot of the King Community Center back in August of 2019. My office recommends that the claim be disallowed because Ms. Anderson not only failed to use ordinary care while walking, but pursuant to state law, the city is immune to damages and liabilities caused by alleged defects in a parking lot when the city had no prior notice of such defect. In this case, the city was unaware of this defect. As such, it's a recommendation of the city attorney's office that this claim be disallowed.
Okay, Alder Tate, please proceed.
What's the definition of ordinary care?
Watching where you're walking, just sort of using the level of care that a reasonable person would use when traversing a parking lot. Involves looking down and watching out for hazards.
Thank you. I wish homeowners could use that verbiage.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any further comments, questions? A motion would be in order at this time then.
Move to approve.
To disallow.
Disallow.
Move to okay. So we have motion to disallow by Alder Pete. Do we have a second. All right. We have a Doppel second. All right. Seconded by Alder Tate II, just for fun. And so are there any is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item 990-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city attorney's office, submitting the claim of Robert Sackett for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation is that the claim be disallowed. Attorney Rubix, that's your cue.
Thank you much. Robert Sackett filed a claim with the city requesting $1,312.32 in damages to a vehicle that was hit by a Racine Unified School District van in the Community Pathways campus back in September of this past year. Because these weren't caused by a City of Racine employee, but rather individual who is operating a vehicle owned by RUSD, the city's not liable for these damages. Therefore, we would recommend disallowance of this claim.
Move to disallow.
Second.
Moved by Alder Tate II, seconded by Alder West. Attorney Rubik, I'm sorry, I was adding a superfluous S to your name. I just realized because I'm tired, so my apologies. And are there a motion and a second? Are there any further? Is there any further discussion?
Yes,
Seeing,
please.
oh yes, oh there's your hand. Your hand is very similar to the background of your wall, so I'm sorry, it's hard for me to catch it. But yes, please proceed, sir.
Whatever. I guess I'm just curious. We get a lot of claims that are about other governmental entities or private entities, and I'm just curious as to like, why do they end up with us when it's not even our thing?
You know, I think it might just be that members of the public don't understand the nuance between government agencies as well as we do. You know, when you don't really you know, have a lot of understanding of the way government works. The county and the city might be the same thing in your mind. School district and the city might be the same. Yeah, we do try to send letters to the claimants and notify them of the proper party that they should be filing their claim with, if it's not us. But I don't think it's super uncommon for people to conflate, you know, these various entities.
Okay. So I guess slight follow-up is, in the instance that we do like clarify, like actually this entity owns that property, is even in that circumstance, people are still proceeding with why I still want to make the claim against the city, or?
You know, generally we go through the disallowance process just to be extra safe in case they insist on bringing the claim against us. It's but hopefully they get our correspondence and they file it accordingly, but it's just extra security for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. We probably wouldn't keep data on whether those those lawsuits get redirected, but in any case, I believe. Wait, do we have a motion? Do we have a? Was this one moved and seconded? It was. Okay, so that was the discussion. Okay, so seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Thank you, Attorney Rubik. Next item is actually a closed session item. So I will. Do I read the item or the blurb first? Blurb first, then item. I'm just, you know what, I'm the chair. I'm just going to decide. It is intended that the Finance and Personnel Committee will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85(1)(g) to confer with legal counsel concerning strategy with respect to litigation in which the city of Racine is involved. So the item specifically to be discussed is item 15-22, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city attorney, requesting the city attorney meet with the Finance and Personnel Committee concerning litigation in which the city is involved, specifically Ordle versus City of Racine, U.S. District Court for the Eastern District, Wisconsin. As noted, recommendation to the committee is to approve the settlement agreement as presented, and the fiscal note is to be discussed. So at this time, I would
Move to enter
we
closed
need a
session.
roll call. Yeah, move to enter into closed session, and we need a moved by me, seconded by Alder West. And we need a roll call to go into closed session, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
let's do that.
all right. Alder Taft,
Yes.
Alder West.
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Yes.
Alder Tate,
Aye.
second. And Alder Meekum is excused. That completes roll call.
Thank you so much. So if the tech folks could let me know when we are offline.